The regular order of things was restored on Saturday as James McPake suffered his 6th Fife Derby defeat at just the 8th time of asking. Without a man advantage, Dunfermline struggled to make inroads against a Rovers side who started slowly but were sparked into life by a tremendous Dylan Easton free kick. And the points were sealed when Cody David smashed home his first Rovers goal with 15 minutes left to go. After an undisputed low point last weekend, there was redemption for Neil Collins, who made some big decisions, and we are here to talk through it all. I am Duncan Cameron, and joining me on Oh No 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 tonight, we have Robbie Weir. First of all, how are you, Robbie?
Yeah, very good. Sit down, be humble.
We've got Carol Alison Smith as well. How are you, Carol?
I'm in a good mood. It's nice, isn't it?
It's very nice.
It's the nice side of the podcasting.
Yeah, me and you haven't been in the same pod for ages either. I'm looking forward to this. And also rounding us off tonight, we've got Alan Douglas, man. How are you, Alan?
I'm really good, mate. In fact, since he's not here to say it himself, I'm going to channel my inner Blair and say I'm buzzing, mate.
Excellent. I think Blair's at the ice hockey, which means there is a significant chance he is not buzzing at this particular time.
I think Scott's there as well, actually. Yeah. So.
Yeah. I don't know anything about ice hockey whatsoever, but
it's cold.
Anything that ever crosses my radar, it's just the Flyers getting beat.
I said that to them before. We were after a podcast once, and they started talking about Flyers because it was like the three of us there, and I was just like, it fries my head that like there'll be like the equivalent of like, obviously we have Mark Campbell there yesterday at the game, total club legend at Rovers. Just you speak about him in the highest of high terms. I was saying to Sandy, sits behind me yesterday, he's like my favourite ever centre back that's played for Rovers. They'll have a favourite ever hockey position, and a player in that I've no idea exists and could walk past me in the street. I'm like, oh my god, that's Mark Campbell.
It's like a sort of parallel universe, isn't it?
Aye.
But one I have absolutely zero interest in.
Oh, aye, going full John Clear with that, and no chance of ever getting involved with that.
Enough of that. Far too cold, for one thing. Alan, I want to stick with you though, because you had a unique vantage point,
yes.
kind of different role for yesterday's game. So tell us, what was that? How did that come about? How did that go? Give us a full rundown.
Yeah, so yesterday I was the match day announcer. It's all Carol's fault. Carol came into the group chat on Monday, I think it was, and said, "Oh yeah, Dot's looking for someone to do the match day announcing," and me being Mr. Daft Volunteery McGee over here, I was like, "Oh yeah, I'll have a go at that. No worries." Yeah, thinking, yeah, one off, I'll do that. Yeah, no problem. And Carol obviously passed my number on to Dot with my permission, and within half an hour, I think, she was on the phone, and she was like, "Oh yeah, thanks. Carol said you want to do this." I'm like, yeah, okay. And she's like, "Yeah, it's a permanent thing. It's not just one off. Johnny can't do it anymore." I'm like, "I didn't, but okay, we'll keep going with this." And she's like, "Oh yeah." And so she started going through the details. And she's like, "So I'll pass your details to Dean." And next minute, I'm getting emails from Dean McKenzie, and then I've got Jim Clark on to me saying, "Oh yeah, we'll arrange your training and stuff like that." And I was like, "Okay." So it all just kind of ran away from me. And the whole week, I was.
At any point, or is this just fait accompli?
I think I did.
Okay.
No, it was one of those. I was quite terrified, but really excited at the same time. I thought, you know what, it's going to be a really interesting opportunity. And I got there. It didn't help that I was then running late. I had to pick up my daughter from her. She was at a sleepover, and when someone tells you where to pick them up and they just give you a postcode, you know it's going to be fairly remote. It's like, yeah, here's the postcode. If you get lost, just give me a shout. But then you're in the middle of nowhere, and kind of near a place called Cambusbarron, near Stirling, and yeah, middle of nowhere. And I'm like, okay, I can see a few farmhouses dotted about on the field-ish and the hills. I'm assuming it's one of them. So ultimately, I was supposed to be at Starks Park for 12 to meet Jim to do my training, and at 20 to 12, I was just dropping the kids off in Tesco in Stirling with my wife. So I had 20 minutes to get to Starks Park. Anyone who's ever driven from Stirling to Cordy, that's not enough time. So I ended up being about 20, 25 minutes late, and I was like, "Oh God, I'm really sorry." And got in, but it was good. We kind of went in. Jim started showing me around, showing me all the equipment and stuff, and I was getting more and more terrified as kind of time went on. then the Gordon Adamson brings the mascots in to let them have a look at the wee box, and I give them I turn on the mic, and just about every one of them, I think, called a Dylan Easton goal, which was a nice little bit of prophesying there. But they were all saying, "Oh, what am I supposed to say?" I'm like, "Don't ask me. I've never done this before." So then we get it all set up, and I managed to get the music working, which was good. But then, because I hadn't had time to plan it all, I didn't have any a playlist set up, so I'm quickly scrolling through the list of the stuff that's on the Wraith Rovers kind of match day playlist on Spotify, and I'm like, I don't know half these songs. I don't know if they're appropriate to play at the football or not. I'm like, oh, okay. Start picking them. And then, because I didn't have a Spotify premium account, it started playing adverts as well. I was like, oh, Jesus, what's going on? But you know what? It was an interesting experience, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. Really glad that the first goal that I got to call was an absolute beauty for Dylan Easton. We'll obviously come on to that later. I was terrified that I was going to have to my first announcement would be like, oh yeah, goal Dunfermline, scored by some Dunfermline player. I had kind of one moment where I think I was actually checking our group chat, and I was like, oh crap, there's subs happening here. Who's coming on? So I opened the wee door and I was like, did you see who's coming on for Dunfermline? I think it's 24. I went, oh no, we didn't see it, mate. Oh, right. Next, I closed the door. Next thing, the guy pushed the door open and goes, I think it was number 29. I was like, Dunfermline didn't have a number 29. I'm going to go with 24. I'm on Dunfermline's Twitter trying to see if they've put up the things. I was on FOP Mob to see if they'd put it on yet. I was like, oh crap, I'm just going to go with it. Thankfully, I was right. But no, it was honestly, it was really good fun. Topped off at the end when I'd thought, because I'd heard Rovers fans singing the Shakin' Stevens song "Merry Christmas Everyone" with the alternative lyrics, I thought maybe I should play that, and I thought no, I might get in trouble for that because I'd be playing that knowing that people are going to start swearing at Dunfermline about it. And then it was Graham Kilgour come up and said, no, get it on and get it turned right up. I was like, okay, fair enough. I've been given permission. And I think it's safe to say it went down well at full time. But no, it was really good fun. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I'm looking forward to doing it again in a couple of weeks' time. I've also apparently been inducted into the Scottish Football Match Day Announcers Union, because Somerset Bob for Ayr United, who is their match day announcer, has already been on to PM me on Twitter, and he's saying, oh yeah, if you're coming down to Somerset, get in touch, we'll have a chat. So he also apparently is an avid watcher of our podcast. So hi Bob, other Bob, should I say, or Bob, let's go with that. So, but no, it was honestly, it was great. It was really good fun, and I'm looking forward to going. I'll be doing a bit more prep beforehand, so we might get back to having some goal celebration music, because I was like, I'm not even messing with that. I'm just not, because I ended up screwing it up. I know when Smithy was telling me that he'd done it once, and he'd lined up the music, and I think it was when it was a Partick Thistle game, and he said he was ready to press the celebration music when the penalty went in, but he was terrified he was going to press it too early and maybe put Dylan Easton off and make him miss it. So I was just like, yeah, arms are crossed. I'm not even going to mess with goal music. So that will come, and I'm open to suggestions for individual songs for players. Dylan Easton's the obvious one. I know where I'm going with that. So
there's just some songs that are like destined to be played at football matches, though. Eh? Like you don't hear them in any other context. Like "Baby I'm Ready to Go" by Republica from like the 90s. That's like a classic. Like right, it gets wheeled out for like. Obviously, you get Christmas songs and they make a killing on royalties. I'm going to guess that Republic aren't making a killing on royalties from like tannoys across Scottish football games, but
yeah. Even when Republic were at their biggest in the 90s, one of the gigs that I once saw them play, I didn't actually go, but they were playing a student ball at Aberdeen University. So that's the kind of level they were at even in the 90s. So yeah, they're probably not making that much money. But
maybe you just need to get your suggestions in for Allan for your pre-match playlist like they used to do back in the day using social media.
I mean, as you can see from the T-shirt I'm wearing, you can see where if it's down to my choice, what direction it's going to go in. So,
yeah, for the
I'd love a bit of Judas Priest. Come on, Allan, bit of Judas Priest, that'd be great.
Oh yes, if anyone is not watching on camera, I'm wearing a Metallica Christmas T-shirt. So
that's class, man. It's really interesting to hear it, and it's one of these things that from, as you say, Monday afternoon.
Yeah.
That idea, I'm sure, had never crossed your mind. And then Saturday afternoon, you're calling a derby victory for the booth.
That's worth noting, actually, that I think it was covered in our group chat that that's two people from this podcast who have now done the match day announcements. Both of them have been a Fife derby, and both of them were 2-0.
I think we should just bear that in mind.
Christina actually gave me a little wave on the way out the stadium. She walked past the box and gave me a wee wave.
But that, I just thought I'd said it was permanent. I like to think there was like a caveat in there that if we get beat, you were just barred. Like, there should be, conditions.
The idea is there's going to be a kind of group of people who can kind of do it, but I think it's basically I'm doing it now for as long as I want to do it and as long as I don't screw it up. And if I'm going on holiday or something, I just let them know in advance and they'll arrange for someone else to do it at that time.
Good stuff. I'd say it was class yesterday. It was nice to hear your voice, and you certainly did get that substitution correct, because I was looking at the time like, is that? I was like, oh well, Allan says it is. It must be right. Moving into the events of the game, or the more directly related to the game, kind of change in shape and a fair few changes in personnel from Neil Collins yesterday. Now, obviously, at great length, there was a lot of conversation about last week, so I think we all suspected there would be a fair bit of change. Apart from me, obviously, in the pre-match when I was like, just leave it, it'll be fine. But obviously, there's a couple more brain cells in the dugout. So Lewis Stevenson came in for Liam Dick, and Kieran Freeman came in for Fanky Dabo in the back line. Nothing too, I think, kind of controversial there. Sean Byrne replaced Scott Brown in the middle, which again, I think you could have probably called pre-match. Aidan Connolly, slightly, I think, unexpected, coming in for Lewis Gibson on the right wing. And then probably the biggest change was Lewis Jameson coming in for Sam Stanton, and that not just being a change in personnel, but as he moving us from the sort of 4-2-3-1 that we've been very, very used to over the last couple of seasons, not just with Neil Collins, but with Ian Murray before him, into much more of effectively just an orthodox 4-4-2, to my eyes, with Jameson and Hamilton playing very much as a front two. Robbie, talk me through your thoughts on those changes and who came in and the presumably the reasons why.
Yeah, I think that listen, we don't know the full injury pictures in terms of I give him a mention just straight from the off, but Scott Brown's jogging up Pratt Street, and I've mentioned this in a few places, jogging up Pratt Street at 20 minutes to 3. Coming out of the Gym 64, going up to the game to support his teammates, which is absolutely class to see. You've got the young team serenading him as he's going up the street. So you don't know like how serious the injuries are, and as to who's out and the reasons that people are out. I think that, yeah, as you say, Stevenson and Freeman coming as your fullbacks is a natural change, and you want to see that. Stevenson, obviously, quite aggressive going forward. And again, I know that you guys touched on it in the pre-match, but Kieran Freeman probably could feel very harshly that he'd been dropped before. Not really had much of an opportunity to be able to come back in. He's been in and out of the squad. And yeah, he deserves it, the opportunity as well. Because I think that with Fanky Dabo, obviously injury not foreseen, I think that Dabo it's started very strongly, and then he's maybe dipped a bit in his performances. I think it's fair to say I didn't catch the game last week, but I have got no desire to watch the highlights for that.
Wasn't great.
Yes, but based on the podcast, fortunately, and the chat that you guys were there to provide, yeah, I have no desire to go back and watch that. I think Connolly was a major surprise in there. I think that there's been a lot of speculation, as we do as football fans. We look into everything and analyse everything to the nth degree. A lot of speculation about, does he have a clause in his contract where he plays a certain number of league games and then we extend his deal and he's a high earner because we want to get him on a 3-year deal. And yeah, for him to come in out the blue and he's worked his way back into the team, I've been relatively maybe unenthused by the possibility of Connolly coming back in, if I'm being completely honest. I think that when I saw that from the start, I wasn't too enthusiastic about it, if I'm being completely honest. But fair play. He's, again, I absolutely love it when football players make me eat my words. It's probably one of my favourite things to be doing on a podcast, because it means that they've had a very, very good game, and that they've rightfully put a no-mark internet commentator right into their place. And I think,
unless it's an opposition player, we don't like that.
yeah, well, that's true. That's true. But yeah, overall, I felt that going into the game, if I'm being brutally honest, I think that within our group chat there was an overall terror. But then we do need to remember that Dunfermline are not Falkirk, that they are a lot poorer, and yeah, that their away record is identical to our away record. They've only secured 1 point on the road, and that was there for everyone to see. Not a classic derby by any stretch of the imagination, but we got the points and we got the job done, as we'll discuss.
Yeah. Carol, do you think the motivation behind some of those changes is based around kind of hard work and solidity, as opposed to maybe some of these guys like Lewis Gibson and Finlay Pollock, who are a wee bit younger, a wee bit more mercurial? I think Neil Collins was looking for more of a hard work base out of that team yesterday, and do you think he got it?
He definitely got it. I mean, you could see when they came on the pitch, and you can tell within the first couple of minutes how Easton's going to play, but just by the way his arms are, if they're up, ready to do his little showman, we are on. If they're down, we're screwed. And it's a silly thing, but it was that, you could see it, the heads were up, a little bit more mentally prepared, a little bit stronger. And I think that's what Collins was wanting, just some sort of mentally stronger heads on that field yesterday, just to start. Because like we said in the group chat, the first 15 minutes, if we've gone to go down in the first 15 minutes, we weren't coming back from that. And we had to keep a clean sheet for the first 15, or the Starts Park would have turned, and it would have not been pretty.
Yeah, I think you could see that on both sides. I think in the early kind of exchanges, two sides very low on confidence, and certainly potentially very brittle. I don't think either end would have reacted well to losing an early goal, and maybe it was kind of characterised by a bit of maybe reluctance to be too expansive, if that's not too elaborate a way to explain away a frankly terrible first 15 minutes of football. Alan, on that kind of early period, I don't think I think it's particularly insightful to say that there wasn't an awful lot going on, but there were certainly signs of what the Rovers were looking to do, and it was a bit more purposeful than we'd seen certainly the week before. In particular, Lewis Jameson and Jack Hamilton as a front two. What did you make of that partnership?
The first thing was when, I think like most people, when I saw the lineup, I just assumed it was going to be a 4-2-3-1 and Jameson was going to be playing wide, and it was like, oh, fuck, not again, man. So the first thing, to see them actually lining up as a front two, it was just a really pleasant surprise. But the thing is, we watch a lot of Rovers. If we're surprised by it, there's a good chance James McPake and Dunfermline were surprised by it. I mean, James McPake's not exactly one of the great footballing minds of our time, so he probably was caught a little bit out with that. And I don't think the Dunfermline defence, they weren't causing an awful lot of, they weren't creating clear-cut chances, but they were causing the Dunfermline defence a lot of trouble. I mean, they've got very different attributes. Jameson's pretty quick, and he's just non-stop. He's like a border collie, just doesn't know when to stop it. He just always wants the ball. And Jack Hamilton is just Jack Hamilton. He's an absolute nuisance. He bullies defenders who he's got no right to be bullying. He puts himself around. He wins headers he shouldn't be winning. But he's also actually got a pretty good touch. He can lay a ball off with his chest better than just about anyone I've ever seen. It's not always accurate, but in terms of the power, it's really quite something to watch. And
you see that in your mind's eye really easily, that Jack Hamilton's doing this. It's like a trademark. Yeah. If he was like a proper top level player, he'd have that on a silhouette on a pair of trainers.
I'm sure Leslie could arrange that. But no, they really put themselves about, and it was it was a good early sign that, we could maybe see something decent from this Rovers team.
I think Jameson in particular, this is maybe a bold statement at this point, but I basically never want to see him play anywhere else or in any other system. I feel like I've seen enough of that, and I think that's where he needs to be.
Position. That is his role is up front in a 2.
Yeah, because he's such a runner, and you know you're going to get that. You know all that energy to come out of it. But when we've played him out wide, you're asking an awful lot, because you're basically saying to someone, right, your starting position is on the touchline, 40 yards from goal. Good luck, running that distance, and you're probably going to have to go by 2 defenders. And then up front on his own, there's too much space. It's just wasted effort. Like, you can do all the running around that you want, but there's too much space. The defence will pass around you. It's not an issue. But yesterday, I think you see the defence are worried enough about Jack Hamilton. And then Jameson's always there. And especially someone like Kyle Benedictus, who I think we'd probably all agree, certainly when he played for us, we all really liked him as a defender. You know what you're going to get out of you know what you're going to get out of him. He's going to do his job. He's going to do it well. He's not necessarily the best under pressure. Again, I think if you sort of picture Kyle Benedictus, it doesn't take a huge leap of imagination to picture him doing something not brilliant because he's being chased down by a striker. If Lewis Jameson's on the park in a front 2, Kyle Benedictus is he's like a bit part character in Jurassic Park. Like, he's got to be constantly thinking there could be a velociraptor somewhere by here, because Lewis Jameson's on the move at 60 mile an hour at all times. So it's almost whether he's actually nearby or not, it's in the back of the defender's minds. Like, he's here somewhere. And even the goalkeeper, sometimes he's chasing the goalkeeper down from a ludicrous starting position. And you could look at that and say, well, that's a bit kind of wasted energy. But again, I think it's that when you do it every single time, the goalkeeper knows he's almost never got the chance to relax. And I really like that. And as I say, I think when he's doing it by himself, it's basically wasted because it's too easy to work around. But when he's doing it and he's in the middle of the park and he's close enough to Jack Hamilton, there's the corner really early on that Ewan Murray gets the free header that he doesn't quite make enough of, comes from exactly that, where it's a long ball, Jack Hamilton chests it down, Jameson, he takes a touch and he gets a shot away. And that was what I wanted to see from the beginning, was like, can we just get a couple of shots in and see what happens?
And I think it's the really smart thing to do from Neil Collins to, look, that game was not one for the purists. It was not one that was going to be, you're ever going to look back and you're going to be like, oh, that's a classic derby. But tell you what we did. We absolutely bullied Sam Young from the first minute. It was so fun to watch Jack Hamilton, just an 18-year-old kid in their defence, and he just got battered. He just absolutely just ran him ragged, just knocked the ball off, and Jameson was just, like you say, Alan, off like a border collie. Just straight away, just tearing at him, just causing problems. It's, again, it's not going to be one where we're particularly going to delve into the quality of it, but it gets you 3 points, and that's what we needed, because if we'd not got the 3 points, people are basically baying for blood. That was where we were at, and that's what we needed. We just needed hard work after last week, and that's exactly what we got. Oh, 100%.
How many times do we have an opposition where there's maybe someone who you could think is possibly the weak point in there, and we just do not exploit it? Queen of the South, 16-year-old goalie who's just finished school and then come into the game, and we didn't put a cross in or a shot in for the entire 90 minutes. That's what Rovers... So to actually do that and really target this guy and put him under pressure, and that, it was really good to see.
We completely failed to do it in the last game against Dunfermline.
Yeah.
That was one of his very first games, and we just didn't ask any questions. We got to 10 men, but we didn't ask any questions.
You said it right from the top there, Duncan. And just to bring this back, just to hammer it home, just in case any other fans are watching, they got very, very chippy after that result. They were giving it the big licks. They were posting photos of Neil Collins on a leash. All that malarkey. They were all giving it the big talk. But see, if you give us 11 men on the pitch, I think that we're a better team than them, and I think that yesterday just showed that we can exploit
They
it.
had Joe Chalmers in their team. There's no doubt in that at all.
It's a charity game player. Ian Latto's said it for months on end. He's just, look, we didn't do anything that gave them anything yesterday. We didn't give them anything there was no stupid mistakes at the back where the defenders maybe acted rashly and pulled someone down like in the last game. There wasn't any playing any centre midfielder or right midfielder at right back. We didn't give them the ammunition to shoot us. That's exactly what happened. Brilliant. Loved it.
So that's said before the game that like I felt sort of the team that lost was going to beat themselves almost, rather than it being like the other team being brilliant. And I don't think we were brilliant by any means at all. I don't think it was quite as bad. I don't think they sort of imploded, but they certainly didn't offer anywhere near enough. But you're right, what we didn't do was give them any of that encouragement early on by making mistakes or, as you say, getting people sent off. But you mentioned, Alan, you mentioned Chalmers there. I think he's one of the other key reasons why that worked for us yesterday. Because playing the front two, what it really let us do was actually engage their back line, which we sometimes have been quite guilty of not doing. Like we play in front of the opposition's defence. But playing the front two, we were very much playing against their defenders. But taking your number 10 and playing an outright striker instead, you're kind of taking somebody out the midfield. So you think, well, if their midfield's on their game, there's going to be more space, they could get something at us. But if one of their midfielders is Joe Chalmers, that is much less of an issue. And just, he's so passive. Like, he's so passive. And you've got Sean Byrne and Ross Matthews just rattling around, constantly crashing into people, and it was never an issue. Like, you would never know that we were playing a midfielder less than we normally do yesterday. So thanks, Joe.
It forces Oluwayemi to he was just hoofing the ball long, just right from the start. Their goalkeeper, Paul Hanlon, I don't know, I hope he had a box of paracetamol next to his bed, because his head must have been thumping with the headers that he was getting clear yesterday. Just won everything.
So that was the other thing, though. To be fair, a couple of those long balls early on, it looked like there might have been a little bit of a mismatch for us in the back line, given the size, as much as anything, of Lewis McCann up against Kieran Freeman. And then you've got Kieran Ngwenya coming down that side as well, and Dapo Mabude trying to run off of Ewan Murray. So the opening kind of 10, 15 minutes, you think that right-hand side, you get Aidan Connolly coming back to try and win those second balls. There's a pretty clear physical mismatch there. But again, after the first sort of 15 minutes or so, I thought those guys did really, really well just to kind of nullify that matchup. Now, obviously, the one big chance of the whole game for Dunfermline does come down that side, and it's Lewis McCann, a guy who really seems to play in fits and starts. Seems like a guy to me that you could build a really good highlight reel for Lewis McCann if you were his agent and just kind of convince people not to watch him for 90 minutes, because he has the capacity to do some really good stuff. But when you see the size of him, you see some of the stuff that he does, and then you realise you're an hour in, and you're like, he's had 2 touches, effectively. Like, he doesn't offer as much as he should.
There's a player there. There is definitely a player there.
He also got absolutely
he would make
broken.
it into a handsome 11 as well. He's a good looking lad, so
But
it's good to look at, I suppose, if you're into that kind of thing. But there's definitely, I think, I actually spot, being in the main stand, I see things that I wouldn't maybe normally see from kind of being right at the back of the south stand where I normally sit. And there was one point where he done, I think he'd given the ball away or something, and he's walking back, and McPake was having the right go at him, and he just sort of went,
I saw
so
that
I don't
as well.
know if there's maybe an attitude issue there, I don't know.
It was a real, like, what do you want me to do kind of idea?
Absolutely.
Like that,
absolutely that, yeah.
Like, just like, I've done nothing wrong there. Like, I don't think I've done anything wrong. Why are you shouting at me? A really clear back and forth them. Did you say that? I remember that at the time. But see, the one thing he did do, he manages to get the shot away, and it's a really nice, he cuts inside, it's a shot across. However, his arch nemesis, Kevin Dabrowski's in the road. Carol, talk to me about that double save.
Well, the commentary on Wraith TV, Davey doesn't call it as a double save to begin with. I think he's praising Hanlon or Stevenson. I can't remember off the top of my head the commentary, but he's praising Stevenson. He's praising someone else. And then when it goes back to the replay, it's just wow. And I don't know what it does to Kev, but you can see it just gives him that shot of adrenaline and endorphins because he's a tall lad, but he grows another 6 foot, and it's just he's up for it then. He is up for it. And it was just, if you think about the size of him, just being able to get from one position to another, I just find fascinating. Getting up off the sofa for me sometimes is a bit of a pain in the ass. How the hell he does that moving around, I don't know. But yeah, it was. And I think that's what we need. I know we don't want to be under that sort of threat, but I think we need something that gives them a shot of adrenaline and boost. That singing, like you could see that he loves singing that Kevin Dabrowski and he's up for it. And yeah, maybe we need to just open up our defence and just Kev, just have 2 good saves every game and you'll feel better.
It was like a high risk strategy to me. But
the second one as well, it wasn't even just sorry, Carol.
No, on you go.
It was just the second one. It was the fact that he actually held onto it as well. It didn't just parry it out. He just stopped it, and I had no idea what had happened at the time. Actually, luckily in my box, luckily in my wee box, I had a TV on so I could watch the replay, and I was just like, yeah, fair play, mate. That was brilliant.
But see what gets me about the second one? He doesn't shy away. He's straight on to Matty Todd, and he's like, I'm coming for this. You better watch out because I am absolutely going to stop you no matter the cost.
Yeah.
It's like a real 90s kind of deep pull, but there's a thing that Peter Schmeichel, and they used to talk about the reason he was so good was because he grew up playing handball. And you see the way that the handball goalkeepers, they just leap at the opposition in just a full, you make yourself as big as possible and you just throw yourself to get as close as possible. And that's very much what Dabrowski does with that, is he's so fast. He doesn't set himself in the way that goalkeepers kind of talk about doing. He just gets out to him. And it is that where, I see the ball basically goes under him, but he's made himself so big that he basically does manage to just about get his arse down on the ball as it's going under him. But his reactions are so quick that as soon as he's done that, he's got his ball, he's got his hands on the ball, and he's away, and it's just brilliant goalkeeping. Again, it's that he has had his critics at times, but there's the difference. Because, well, actually, I tell you what, I don't know enough about the Dunfermline goalkeeper. I'm really not seen much of him, but I tell you this, Dennis Mehmet doesn't save that.
No.
Either one of them, I don't think. And that's the difference. I don't know how many other goalkeepers in the division make that double save in such a convincing manner.
See, to tail on to that point, just going back to the 90s goalkeepers, it's very Oliver Kahn-esque, just that screaming giant figure. That's what you want from your goalkeeper. I know it's an old school throwback, but you just want them to have that degree of nah, no the day. It's not happening. You just want that confidence of aye, I'm just going to shout. And again, I was going to touch on this before. I genuinely think, to a degree, it's mentally broken Lewis McCann, that penalty last season, where it had the chance to get them back into that game in the Scottish Cup. I mean, it would have been, 3-1, potentially take away a clean sheet from him. And Big Kev just saves it. First thing he's doing, absolutely screaming in his face. Inject it. That's all I'll say.
Big man loves a derby, and
those
that's what you want to see.
That get you going, aren't they? I mean, there was that for Kev, and then I think it was only a few minutes later that Ross Matthews went into a properly crunching tackle, and the whole stadium, our side of the stadium, just really erupted, and that it just got everyone fired up, and that's what you need in a game like that. It's what was sorely missing from the game at the Falkirk Stadium last week, and was there in abundance yesterday. That kind of proper commitment.
I thought actually just quickly.
Sorry.
No, on you go, Carol.
And commitment to the team. A big difference I saw yesterday was Dunfermline was a lot of individual players just plodding around the pitch, not really knowing what was going on. And we came out and was a team. And Kev was like, it's my ball, not your goal. And the whole team was like, this is our ground. This is our team. And we are not letting you through. Because I think everyone knew deep down, if a goal went in, it was not going to be pretty. Even if we were 2-1 up, I think we can't feel happy until it's 7-0. Even then, I mean, I watched the derby in Barcelona, San Andrea versus Europa, and I thought we were going to throw away a 6-3 lead. It was close. So yeah, I think that's the
You are a
because you
Rovers
can't
fan,
relax.
We've been burned too many times. It's not getting into that.
And that's the thing. But I think that's the thing is we've been burned so many times is that we can't relax. So the only way we can relax is if there's no goals. At least then we're not losing. And that's the kind of stage we're at this season.
I was going to say, as you say, Alan, relatively early doors, Ross Matthews clattered into somebody. There was a couple of those. I actually think Ross Matthews was probably quite fortunate to avoid a booking over the piece. But that's my point. They didn't get any yellow cards. Neither did we. Fife Derby with no bookings, which is remarkable. But
do you know what the referee's name was?
I don't know what his name was.
Anyone?
No, because it was the guy that sent off Phil Easton now in the season.
Aye,
I only know because I had to say it a couple of times when I was reading out the teams.
That was my sort of point I was going to put. I thought it was a really well refereed game. And that's a really, really rare thing to say at this level. I know that the threshold is incredibly low because they're so bad for 99.9% of the games. But that was point one where he did everything. He got all the right decisions. There was no stupid bookings.
You didn't notice him. That's
didn't make odds for his own back.
When there was the very, very early, really minor flashpoint between was it Dylan Easton and Matty Todd, something like that. And I was like, Dylan, what are you doing? That guy hates you. Like, don't give him any excuses. But the point I was going to make there is Ross Matthews, I thought was excellent. He actually started off a wee bit shaky, had a pass that went out of the park, and he was kind of out of position very slightly the first 10 minutes, and totally put that behind him. And then really kind of ran the game as much as anything. I see, like Joe Chalmers, he is the opposite. You know, I say if Joe Chalmers is the most passive midfield in the division, Ross Matthews might be the most active in the sense that he just never stops moving. He's just clattering around, knocking people over. There was nobody in that Dunfermline side who were going to do that. To the point where, as I say, so there was no yellow cards. Now, obviously, the object of the game is not to get booked, but you just get beat 2-0 in a derby. There's nobody in that Dunfermline side I could have pointed to and said he was even really in danger of getting a booking because he was charging about and putting tackles in. And I'm sure their end, they would have much rather they had somebody there who would have at least tried to throw himself about a bit.
Yeah.
And try and get them bitched. Think about Jack Hamilton clattering that goalie last season. Sometimes you need something like that. I think that it's probably worth pointing out that Chris Hamilton was suspended for that game because that's all he does. So he'd picked up so many of those bookings that he couldn't play yesterday. So that's where they were missing somebody like that. But again, I think it speaks to something that we got out the Rovers yesterday that we didn't have last week, effectively, that he was involved in the game, imposing himself on the game, and just did really, really well. But that basically, I think, takes us up to the goal, which was a delight.
Just before we discuss the goal, I would say usually for that point, from Dunfermline, all the games, the standout player that I would say stood out really before, controlled the game for them, was Ewan Otto, and he was anonymous yesterday. Absolutely nowhere to be seen. Felt that Sean Byrne and Ross Matthews, they dictated the midfield so well. I touched earlier on about Oluwayemi having to kick it long. I think a big reason for that was the fact that just Byrne and Matthews just weren't taking in him. They weren't, no nonsense, in a very well-mannered way.
There was a couple of times I saw him coming forward with the ball, and I was like, he looks really cumbersome. That was the only word I could think of. It's like, he's not normally like that. He's normally a pretty fluid, decent footballer, but he just looked really slow and clumsy coming out when he was playing further back, and it just didn't look like himself at all. There's something missing out of that team, and I love it.
Yeah,
long may it continue.
4 or 5 good players.
Well,
because that is actually the one time I noticed him was watching the highlights. Once it goes to 2-0, and obviously they've got a bit more of the ball. Pretty much all of those highlights start with Ewan Otto just running 20 yards. Like, he was the one guy actually trying to do something. There's also, this will be the one bit of credit I think I give anybody for Dunfermline yesterday. There is a pass that he plays in the midfield where he clips it over the defence for Kieran Ngwenya, who's running into the byline. That's an incredible pass. Really, it's a brilliant piece of football. But came to nothing, so let's not worry about that too much.
Let's talk about a better bit of football.
Oh, exactly. And I think we talked a fair bit the last couple of weeks that our best route to goal was playing for penalties. I'm glad that we can at least now, with a body of evidence, expand that out to playing for penalties and free kicks. It's just like, I'm sure you were the same. It's like, somebody take a shot until Aaron Comrie just boots Dylan Easton over, which he's like, ludicrously far away from that being remotely near a good tackle. Like, just kicks him with the knee. Like, the hell was that? And I think you can actually see Dylan Easton looking at the referee. I don't think he's even saying, like, that's definitely a booking. He's basically just going, what happened there? Why did he just kick me over? But then, Alan, you can give us your thoughts on the goal from from your unique vantage point.
It's a weird one because, sometimes watching a game of football, you know what's going to happen. Like, you just think, and I had the microphone in my hand already. Like, it was normally sitting on the table. I had the microphone in my hand. I was like, he's scoring this. I don't know why. I just knew he was scoring it. When you're watching it, and there was three of them over the ball initially. You had Aidan Connolly was there, and Jameson was there as well, and Easton's there, and I'm like, why are you two even there? There's no way Dylan Easton's letting either of you two hit this. He is hitting this, and he's scoring. And it was, it's not right in the corner, but it's far enough over, and there's enough power on it that it would have taken a really, really good bit of goalkeeping to stop it. And most goalkeepers, especially at this level, are not saving it. I think it'd even have been a stretch for someone like Kev to get to, who is one of the better shot stoppers in the division. It was just a really well hit free kick, decent power, accuracy, and it was just lovely to see. And very, very enjoyable for my first goal announcement at Stars Park, I have to say. Really enjoyed it.
Couldn't ask for much better than that. Carol, give me your thoughts on the goal as well, please.
Well, I had friends over for a Christmas party, so I got everyone to be silent when we liked to witness this. So it was going to go two ways. It was, well, yeah. When I told my mum I was having a Christmas party and watching the Wraith game, my mum's response was like, "What have they done to you? What is their punishment?" I was like, "Shut up, this will be fine."
Did you let your boyfriend watch, or did you send him out on his bike?
No, he was out on the bike. He got sent out to the bike for the game and didn't come back until 2 minutes before the end of the game. Yeah, that's the rules. I had everything. I had all my lucky shirts. I had all my lucky pants, my lucky socks. I've got my little model of Bastet that I made an offering to for good luck. I had everything going. Yeah. No, the goal. Going back to the proper thing. You could see when they lined up the height of Dunfermline and how small our team is. But it looked like they'd done their homework and got it the wrong way around, because everything was going for the goalkeeper's left and Easton was going for his right from the moment he set that ball up. Completely, he was going for the goalkeeper's right. And yeah, he found just the gap between the two tall heads, and it was beautiful.
Now, Robbie, do you agree with Alan? Do you think nothing the goalkeeper can do about that?
Yeah, 100%. They saw them lining up, and I was asking the folk around me, I was like, do you think Connolly will maybe have a go with this? And I was just quickly told, like, no, this is going to be Dylan Easton. And yes, about 20 seconds later, I was flying through the air in delight. Absolutely beautiful to watch, particularly given the fact it was in front of the wee feral minks that were chucking lighters and empty cups and whatever at them. So just once again, to reiterate the words of Kendrick Lamar, there's levels to it you and I know. Sit down, be humble.
Just one wee guy, like, properly, he looks about 11 or 12, properly runs right down about 6 rows out, like, the stairs and starts giving it. It's like, just go and sit down, mate.
Yeah.
But did you see the way that Burns swaggers up like he's Begbie out of Train Spot and ready to square up to them? It's like, whoa, he was having it was just this swaggering into Sunday, like, I'm going to get you.
Yeah, and all credit to, I think it was Par's review on Twitter for videoing and posting that.
Why would you post that?
Class. Thank you, mate. That's lovely. Especially the massive silhouette of the guy giving the Vickies to Dylan Easton. Class.
If they want to be watching this podcast and be taking any extracts from it like they did before with the mocking us before, then if you're listening, get it right up you. So enjoy that one.
So I think that really kind of takes us up to half time, and it felt, I don't know, I can ask you, this is the benefit of the position I'm in. Don't know how it felt to you. Allan, how did you feel at half time? Did you think we wanted the lead?
We didn't deserve to be behind, because Dunfermline, other than that double save, didn't trouble us at all, really. You could make a pretty good case for saying going in level would have been fair, but screw fair. Who gives a shit about fair? Nobody could say that we were lucky to be ahead, or that it was, it was robbery or anything like that. It was just kind of it was a bit of a kind of game, really, in terms of the quality of football and the number of really clear-cut chances, but we probably had the better of them, and we certainly had more quality than in the moves that we made, the passes, that kind of thing. So we were the better team. So in that sense, probably just about deserved the lead, maybe.
And taking it into the second half, Robbie, I mean, first 20 minutes after half time, did you get the feeling that Dunfermline had much, to come back? Obviously, their fans have been very vocal about how bad they've been, how terrible they look once they concede. Were you concerned at any point that they might come back into that game?
No, absolutely not. I just felt that we were. I think that in the second half we really saw a lot more of Connolly and Freeman going down the right hand side. They seemed to really start getting into their element, being a bit more aggressive and a bit more confident in terms of their play. Again, you're a bit worried when you see the likes of Hamilton and Easton go down. Particularly Easton's one looks a lot worse than it sounds in terms of what you're hearing post-match. But yeah, for me, that Dunfermline team, there really wasn't that much about it. Dapo Mabudi, I don't think we've missed really anything from him. He doesn't look really up to much at all. The fact that Chris Kane wasn't fit was a huge blessing, because he caused us no end of problems at East End Park. So real downgrade on that front, using Mabudi as a striker there. Matty Todd's not that good. Kane Richie Hosler's just... he was built up to be the Messiah, and he's done absolutely nothing this season.
Didn't he touch the ball?
Yeah, just looks like a lost wee lad. Again, Lewis McCann, we've spoken about him before, but he just doesn't look like he's up to much. And yeah, I can see there's clearly talent there, but look, I just felt that we had another gear to go up potentially, and I don't think they did. And I don't think...
No.
If you'd said to me at half-time, this game's either going to end 2-0 or they're going to turn it around, you're only going for 2-0. Like, as bad as last week was, we had the application and the effort there this week that you felt like, right, we're on the right track, we're creating things. Even from when the first minute, it was Rovers on the attack, we got the corner up the other end, and we were battering forward. And the second half started the same way. The game was mainly played in the middle third. It wasn't like we were camping out on the edge of their box, but we didn't absolutely destroy them. We've seen derbies before where we've controlled it from start to finish and destroyed them, and they can say the same the other way. But yeah, generally, I just felt it was heading in one direction, and maybe if they scored, I would have started to get a bit more worried about it. But after the fact, I think you can be pretty brazen and say that we put them back in the place.
Well, that's if you'd stopped me immediately before we scored our second and said, what chance would Dunfermline got here? It would be different to my answer now, looking back at that point. But as looking back at it, they just didn't look like a team with any belief whatsoever. Like they look like a team that is ninth in the table. And I don't think I'm saying anything that Dunfermline fans haven't been saying for weeks. They're not making the most of the ability that they've got, is probably about the kindest thing I think you could say. Because you're right, Mabudi, again, I mentioned that kind of first 10-15 minutes, they were hitting these big diagonals into their left-hand side, and you had McCann against Freeman and Mabudi against Murray. And he was competing for those balls, and you think, oh, hang on a second, he could be giving Ewan Murray a bit of a tough time here. And again, it was like Ewan Murray needed 10, 15 minutes just to go, right, okay, what are we dealing with here? Right, okay, you're going to challenge for these headers. Cool, fine. Adjusted to it, never saw him again. Again, just did not impact the game. And as I mentioned a second ago, Kane Ritchie-Hosler, absolutely the worst culprit for that. I had to just double check there. Played the full 90 minutes. I just did like nothing. Absolutely zero contribution.
There's a lot of these players that they've hyped up with that season in League One. And if I'm being brutally honest, like, I've not seen anything from them that caused me any concern so far. It might be that they kick on and they go on and they have great careers. But I've not seen anything from them so far that makes me jump out and think, oh, this is a lad that's going to really go on and kick on and have a really, really great career. I'm just seeing smack bang average championship football players, as far as I can see. That might be a pretty bold statement to make, but that's why we're here. And
it's such a different ask being a winger for a full-time team in League One versus being a winger in a side in the bottom half of the Championship. Mm-hmm. It's like, right, mate, you're going to get the ball twice in good positions in 90 minutes, and you better do something with it both times, or you are getting dog's abuse from your own support. And he's just... I'm sure he'll have his moments over the course of the season. Listen, we've still to play them twice. There's every chance that one of those moments will come against us. But based on that 90 minutes, I mean, if you were, heaven forbid, a Dunfermline supporter, and you were looking for points of failure yesterday, there's one. Like, you basically put with 10 men. And that's before we get back to Joe Chalmers again. So, anyway,
there was just no fight in their team at all, was it? Like, nothing.
Exactly.
Emphasised with the fact that there was no bookings. Yes, there was no bookings for us as well. A couple of other players, Byrne and Matthews, probably could have been booked. There was one where I was convinced he was going to take it back and book Byrne in the first half after a pretty meaty tackle when he played on. But yeah, there was just nothing in that Dunfermline performance that suggested they're up for a fight. I mean, they are so lucky that Airdrie are dug meat. Because otherwise they would be bang in trouble. If Airdrie can find a wee bit of form, if Ben Wilson can take his penalty goal for yesterday and maybe spur him on a wee bit, Dunfermline could be in trouble.
I mean, look, I think one thing for us that's quite important, again, getting back to the Rovers' perspective on this, and I just want to have this up. Last week didn't define our season. This week is not going to define our season. It's classic football cliche talk, but you take it one game at a time. Because I guarantee if we lose next week against Queen's Park, we go back to being the shittest team in the league and people are fucking slaughtering us for this, that and the other, and we've not got a clue and we've not got great signings and this player's terrible, that player's terrible. Because that's the way that it works. It just seems to be flying like a pendulum one way and the other. And again, I'm not going to be one that's going to get too carried away. Again, the performance, everyone did as expected of them, and I think you've got to give praise where it's due to the Rovers players for showing up, and they got the job done after receiving a lot of criticism last week. A lot of criticism. And they needed to do that, because it wouldn't have been... I think that it's one of those things where the whole sort of psychology behind it, I just find fascinating, because people are just so quick to jump from one to the other. And again, I'm like that myself. I am completely like that myself. Before the game, I was like, it's mentally exhausting being a Rafe fan this season. It's genuinely, like, girlfriend sitting there and it's like, why do you torture yourself like this? It's just like, and I'm like, yeah, but like, see when it's good and you win games and you're on like podcasts, we've barely spoken about the second half. We've not even touched the second goal, and we're almost an hour into our podcast and we're all having a great time. See this time last week, or this last Monday, you get people in the comments and they're saying, you need to stop being so negative. Again, you can understand why people are being negative after that, what was apparently the game last week. And you can understand why we're positive this week. But that's the nature of the beast. And unfortunately, that's what happens when you dabble with lower league Scottish football.
Yeah, thank you for reminding me that we're quite far into this podcast. Let's have a quick break.
A football club is nothing without its community. And this Christmas, there are people in our community who need your help. Kirkcaldy Food Bank provided enough food for more than 368,000 meals last year, and sadly, demand continues to rise. A third of all the support they provide goes to children, and we have to make sure that they can continue to help those who need it most. The Kirkcaldy Food Bank Christmas campaign has a number of vouchers available to buy to make it easy for you to help cover the cost of this vital assistance, and they start from just £5. Please visit kirkcaldyfoodbankcharity.org.uk to find out more and to donate today.
So we talked before about, before this game, Scott in particular, I remember asking him in the pre-match, what is it you're looking for? And he was talking about attitude and that willingness to actually go and do the job and go and put every single thing into it. And I think we've got some really good examples of that. So I want to talk about Cody David in a fair bit. I'm going to come back to Cody David. Before we do that, get Jack Hamilton and Dylan Easton, both of them, as you mentioned, Robbie, picking up injuries. It sounds like, from what we've heard since, twisted ankles, which probably not the worst possible diagnosis. I certainly think in the moment there was some real concern for Dylan Easton, who possibly just being dramatic, who knows. But, I mean, that looked really quite bad. But the point I want to come back to is the fact that both of them had every intention of trying to play on there to their own detriment. And I think sometimes you've got to save guys from themselves, but like both of them clearly hurt, trying to go on. Even at the point when he was actually subbed, Jack Hamilton was still trying to tell the bench to leave him on at least for the corner we were about to take. Now, maybe this is a bit on the nose, but to me, that's the attitude you want to see.
100%.
That's guys saying, right, I will do whatever you need me to do, and I will stay out there, and I don't care the pain that I'm in. I'm going to give it everything I've got to be out there, because this is a derby, this is all of that stuff. And then to kind of top that off, what we've got is Cody David, a guy who, I don't think this is kind of unfair to say that some people have been a little critical of his application, based on relative. I've done it as well, by the way, but like relatively little evidence. But you see his warm ups and stuff, and people are like, oh, he's not doing an awful lot of effort before kickoff and all this kind of stuff, and that starts to get questions about his attitude. And I think we've heard that from previous clubs as well. And then you find out after the game that yesterday he'd barely trained this week because he'd picked up an injury at the first half of the week. So he turned up at Starks Park in the morning for a fitness test that he then failed and agreed to basically sit on the bench anyway, I think effectively as a decoy, just so that James McPake didn't know what options we did and didn't have. So he's warming up, he sees Jack Hamilton's going down, and he comes back and he says to the gaffer, right, fine, put me in.
Because it looked initially like Lewis Gibson was getting stripped to come on. And I think everyone was a bit like, oh, that's a bit weird. Again, just using Jamieson maybe as a single striker. And then, like, what are we going to use? And then next
I think that there was the little bit of the delay where Jack Hamilton went back in, and I think that's just given him enough time. And that's because Cody David's basically just gone, I'll do it. Like, and he said himself, he's like, he didn't say what his injury was, but he did say it's a very painful one. And I absolutely, see, looking at him at full time, absolutely will take that on faith. But Carol, you can't ask for more than that, really, can you?
No, and I think picking up on what everyone said, we've been talking a lot about players in pairs today instead of individual players. We've been talking about, I'm just looking at Jameson and Hamilton, Easton and Connolly, Sean and Byrne and Matthews. We've been talking about them in pairs, and I think that was a big thing, is everyone's working for the team, but also seemed to be working for their partner and making sure that they were not left on their own. And it was that, not commitment. I don't want to be the hero. I'm not staying on to be the hero. I'm staying on because I've got someone who relies on me to be in a position and a whole entire team that needs me. So yeah, I don't think we could ask for it anymore. It was a complete attitude change. And I think yesterday wasn't a season-defining win, but it would have been a season-defining loss. It would have been, promotion, playoffs. We're looking at different end playoffs, I think, if we'd lost yesterday. Winning it's not completely turned around our season, and we can't say that we're now fantastic, but I think if we'd lost yesterday, we could have said that this is defining it.
I think that was equally true for both sides, that whichever side won, it was going to be brilliant. That's a really good win. Attention turns to next week, and you only have to look at what's happened down the A92 since yesterday to see what happens. We get beat, and it's crisis, and this guy's got to go, and all this, everything else that comes with it. Robbie, Cody David, though, not only does he come on to put a shift in, despite the fact he's clearly in a really fair degree amount of discomfort, he also gets the chance to put the ball in the back of the net. It's a cracking moment, that one.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the ones that you now put into the category of like, it's now become a bit of a like cult moment of like, whatever you do, however your time with Raith Rovers finishes, whether you leave in January or you go on to play, I don't know, 100 games for us, whatever happens, you've got that moment. And it's great to see. Really good finish as well. Really unconventional goal. Right, we've been speaking a lot about like people doing their jobs, where you want centre forwards doing things, what you want. I've been quite critical again. First half, not getting crosses into the box. So what happens? It's a second cycle of play. The ball comes out to Kieran Freeman, who hoops it long. Who's winning the header? Ross Matthews. Like, okay, we'll take that. Falls to, presumably it's going to be Lewis Jameson that's getting on the volley. No, it's not. Or Cody David even. It's not. It's Paul Hanlon. What's Paul Hanlon doing up there? So Paul Hanlon hits it. It comes off Kyle Benedictus, falls right for Cody David, who nutmegs Oluwayemi as well. Brilliantly taken goal, and you can tell it was quite an emotional moment for the big guy. Again, he's taken a gamble to come up to Scotland, and you've got to imagine it's tough. You're coming away from your friends and your family to move up to Scotland into unfamiliar league system, unfamiliar territory, a bit of something a bit different. So yeah. Again, you've got to give the credit where credit's due. A really well taken goal. Great to see him get off the mark. Hopefully a really big confidence booster for her. And hopefully as well, just that moving forward, just that he can carry that on. So yeah.
Yeah, and Alan, I actually thought, even setting the goal aside, I thought we saw more out of Cody David in that, whatever that was, 20-25 minutes, that he was on the park, really, than we've seen from him up till now.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that? Do you think
absolutely.
And
I do wonder if maybe that is a similar thing that we discussed earlier with Jameson, and that he's just happier being up front with someone. You know, he put himself around really well. He gave, you know, the Dunfermline defence thing. Oh, excellent! Hamilton's gone off. We're going to get a bit of an easier time. Really not, because here's another guy going to come around who, despite being on one leg, is going to absolutely terrorise you. I don't know if anyone listened to Sports Sound after the game yesterday. I know for a fact that Rory Loy is not listening to this, but he described the goal as bundling it home. Piss off. That is as far away from bundling home.
That was rifled
or smashed it home. He did.
There we go.
It was not a bundle. Like I don't know what that guy was smoking, but anyway, that's besides the point. I mean, there was a couple points. Yes, David, he put himself around really well. He linked up well with other players, but it was also really telling how chuffed the rest of the players looked for him to get that goal. They all seemed really happy for him, and it kind of made you think, oh, wait a minute. He comes across, like, we all kind of laugh about the photos of him when he's like, just this
crabbit face,
and he never looks happy, but he was genuinely happy to score that goal. The team were genuinely happy for him. They seemed to really like him, and you know what? His interview with Davey was brilliant. He just came across. You watch that and just thinking, I really like this guy, and I hope he signs to the end of the season at least. Like, genuinely, on the strength of that 20-minute performance and his interview, I'm thinking, I'd sign this guy. Which is maybe a bit of an overreaction, maybe not, I don't know. But there was enough signs there to show that there is absolutely a player in there who can do well at this level. And I think we've probably seen a little bit of that already, but maybe not enough of it. We saw a lot more of it yesterday.
Yeah. Rover strikers are like Spinal Tap's drummers at this point, so we could really do with them anyway. Just extra bodies to play up front. I think that is just a quick point. Typical that in a week where we've got two guys who go off injured, but they don't look too bad, that we've got a game on the Friday as opposed to the Saturday, a day less to try and get them in. So obviously it'll be interesting to see later in the week what kind of news we're getting through, who might and might not be available for next week, because we could be down to some fairly fairly bare bones. But we kind of touched upon it already, but the final 15 minutes, after that goal goes in, the Rovers naturally were a little bit less proactive. They kind of kept their shape a little bit more, gave Dunfermline the ball. But Carol, by that point, was there any concern for you that Dunfermline might have something to come back at us with?
I think the concern of that is not that Dunfermline will score, is we will make a mistake. That was Dunfermline weren't going to do anything magical. We could do something stupid because we're Rovers, and that's just how it works. But I didn't think yesterday on the performance, I didn't think that was highly likely. But that was the only way Dunfermline were going to score. It wouldn't be them doing something wonderful. It'd be us fucking up.
Because when you see the guys coming off the bench, and Josh Cooper, I think it's their top scorer, despite the fact he can't get a game.
So he only got like 2 goals. He's
got 3, yeah. And David Witherspoon is their most assists. He's got 4. And their next after that is a load of guys who've got 1 each, including Josh Cooper. So you see those guys coming off the bench, I think, well, actually, maybe they're going to get better now. James McPake not picking his best players. But other than the kind of chances that you're naturally going to see, 15 minutes when a side's got all the motivation to try and get something, but there's nothing in there that would give you heart palpitations. There's a header that Witherspoon has that you should probably do better with. He has a shot from distance that's fairly easily dealt with as well. And I'd say there's that ball clipped over the top from Uenotu, which and Gwenya cuts back and it doesn't come to anything.
Even corners were quite comfortable, which is not a thing we've said a lot recently, but I mean, going back to Carol's point about pairs, Hanlon and Murray were brilliant. Like, they just took in everything that came their way. Murray did his usual, taking one in the dish early on as well, needing a bit of treatment. But the two of them, they looked solid. They never really. And then the one time, they did get in behind them, Kev did what he had to do. It was just a really decent defensive performance.
Yeah, it very much was. I think it's a lot of credit due to the defence. Again, there's been a lot of chopping and changing in that back line, which is not easy. And like Kieran Freeman, his first game since October, I think. Very, very solid. I think even in the time that we saw him, I think what we came to expect from Kieran Freeman was like, oh, this guy is solid. Like he might not be a flying wing back by anybody's measure, but he'll do his job. And that was very much what we got from him yesterday.
You've got to give a large degree of praise to his professionalism, because he went out the team after the League Cup, and then he came back in the team after having an injury, and then we signed Frankie Dabo, and then he drops out the team, and then he's in and out the squad, and then it's like, right, we need you now, right, back in. Fair play.
Yeah, definitely. It's a bit of it's an unusual situation for us as a football club, that we've got guys like proper grown-ups, like actual senior professionals who haven't been making a match day squad, because Aidan Connolly's in that camp as well.
Yeah.
So the two of them, our right-hand side yesterday, for weeks at a time, have been sitting in the stand. And you're absolutely right. They're due a lot of credit that there's no chucking the toys at the pram. They came back in, took 5-10 minutes to settle, and then didn't look back.
So there must be a kind of testament to Neil Collins' man management as well, because he must, he's going to have to be saying to them, look, you're not getting on the bench because we want to have different options there for the match, and we think we've got guys among that who can cover all the positions if we need them. But you're still part of my plans, and when I do need you, I need you to step up and to play your part. And they both did that yesterday. Yeah, like you say, they took a bit of time to get up to speed, which is completely natural, because neither of them have played a championship game for a decent time. But I think they both did, really well. They put themselves around. They did their job. It was great.
See, the other one that I've got in not quite as drastic in the sense that he's still had a fair bit of game time. The other one I've got on my list of sort of players to give a mention to is Sean Byrne. Mm-hmm. I thought that was effectively last season's Sean Byrne. It was what I felt like I was watching there yesterday. Carol, would you agree with that?
Yeah, very different. Just a bit more solid, a bit more on the ball, a bit more up for it. Definitely the Sean Byrne just running. I would love to see how many kilometres he ran during the game. I haven't seen those statistics for a while, just because he seemed to be everywhere. Him and Matthews just were. Anyone who was getting tackled by them must be in pain this morning, because they were just both taking them out, and it was good. It's what we needed. I would love to know what is the difference between last Saturday and yesterday. What have they? Is it like gummy bear juice they've given them or something? Because it's astounding, the difference, and it's like whatever it is, you need to bottle it and keep it going, because something worked last week in training, something worked in motivation in the dressing room, something worked on that pitch yesterday that wasn't working last week against Falkirk, and long may it continue.
See, before the game, what got me is a lot of the discussion was about like, oh, what's the point in doing a pre-match interview? Because it's like 2 minutes long. And Graham sits down. Now, anyone that knows Graham Kilgour will tell you that Graham Kilgour is excellent at talking and asking questions. He's got a lot of good podcasts that I would encourage people to listen to. Brilliant with the K107, and he's fantastic at hospitality. Like, that's not down on the part of Graham not wanting to ask questions. I think that Neil Collins has basically went into that pre-match interview and says, look, I just want to get into this game. I just want to get wired into them. And look, there's been a lot of criticism levelled at the squad, and it doesn't undo the fact that last week was a shambles. Nobody's going to take that away, because it's all part of a bigger picture in the season. But you've got to give the squad some credit as well for having the mental fortitude to sort of set it aside, say, like, let's get back into training. Big derby on Saturday. The best way to repay fans is to go out there and everyone put in a shift. You can't label any criticism of any Raith Rovers player yesterday of not putting in a shift, which is brilliant. And again, it's as fans, it's exactly what you want. But I think with these things, you've got to give them the credit where there's due, and I think the squad deserve the credit for that. But yeah, that's like just more of that, and I think that we can just head in the right direction. And again, it's. I think people are a bit wary of sort of going too overboard with things with like, right, we've had so many false starts, but look, just got to accept it. It was a good result, and hopefully we can carry on forward in a more positive light, because it's so exhausting when you see that some of the stuff that was getting posted online is just absolute nonsense. People like, oh, I don't know if Neil Collins is going to fancy this if we lose on Saturday. Why are we talking about stuff like that? Fucking get a grip. Like, it's just, aye. I get that I'm happy clapper, and I get that, look, before the game there was a lot made, there was a lot of disappointment after last Saturday, but be as well shutting down the football club if we're going down that route, because Jesus Christ, it was just some of it was just ridiculous.
I'm going to come back to you. It's a happy place. Don't make it miserable for yourself.
Exactly. I'm going to come back to you in a second, Robbie, and I'll get your any other final thoughts and get your man of the match. But just because you mentioned it there, Graham Kilgour and his ability to talk, he has a podcast called How You Say It, where he sits down with various people, some are kind of football characters, and other people from kind of the wider universe. It's really interesting. It's kind of a communications type thing. It's like David Martindale's on there, Neil Lennon, I'm sure, is one as well. And it's that kind of, how do you communicate your own ideas in your own chosen field? Really interesting, and well worth looking out for.
He's also got whiskey stories as well that he does from the Diggers in Edinburgh. And yeah, if you're into your whiskies, then a wee plug for them. Not being sponsored by them, of course, but
I tell you, not only we're not being sponsored, I didn't even know about that one, so I've learned about that. So
well, there you go. If you want
to, I knew about the whiskey one because I'm coming across as one of those LinkedIn wankers. I'm connected with Graham on LinkedIn, but I didn't know about the other one. What did you say? How you say it?
How you say it.
Excellent.
Yeah. It's really good.
I do like a podcast.
Just following up Graham Kilgour.
I do like a podcast, so I'll check it out.
Yes, so that aside, that's just free PR for Grumner for really no reason.
We're doing no disservice to our sheer apparent love for everything to do with the board at Raith Rovers and supporting the family members.
Just for Graham Kilgour. Yes, Robbie, sorry, back to the game. So just very quickly, your man of the match. We've mentioned, I think, just about everybody. But give me a man of the match, please.
I'm going to go to. This is actually a nightmare.
It's really difficult.
For the opposite reason of last week.
Sean Byrne's jumping out because that was, it's like you say, Sean Byrne from last season. I think that was a fantastic performance in a game. The social media clip is showing him just all over the pitch, and I love the bit where he just comes over to Matty Todd after the incident with Easton, and he's just like, just you watch yourself. Just just puts him right in his place. Nothing too much, but he's just, and then you can see Todd arse just collapses out of him. Great to watch. Again, he mentions to Connolly and Freeman. Look, it wasn't one of those games where we saw either of them get on the goal trail or any assists or things like that. But to come in from a cold, give them so much praise for that. Dylan Easton steps up with another magical moment. He's in the conversation. Just all across the pitch, there was just so much effort, so much drive and determination, a real team performance. But I'm going to stick with Sean Byrne. So, yeah.
Carol, for you?
Sean Byrne, or I'm just going to do that on anyone on the team because, it was the Sean Byrne. Even just for the swagger and for his policing, his attitude yesterday was, this is my team, my pitch, my rules, and come and have a go if you think you're hard enough. And I wouldn't want to square up to Sean Byrne.
Not me neither.
I think he'd be very confused if you squared up to him, Carol.
Yeah.
Especially if you were speaking Spanish. That'd be funny.
Yeah.
Such a lovely guy as well.
Yeah.
Alan, who was the sponsors man of the match? Was it Dylan Easton?
Dylan Easton.
It was.
Would you agree with that, or do you have your own?
There's shout out, I can already mention it to Hanlon and Murray, who I thought were both good. I thought Stevenson had a decent game as well. Kev Dabrowski was solid. Absolutely solid. He made the saves you expect him to make. He made a couple of saves that some goalies wouldn't have made. He commanded his box. There was one he took a good catch. There was one where he punched it as well, and it was a good kind of clearance. One maybe hairy moment with the ball at his feet, but it was from a really poor pass back, and it was nothing kind of he was doing. I thought he was just really solid. But I think Dylan Easton is the spark in that team. When he's on his game, genuinely for me, he's the best player in the league. In terms of that type of player, he can create chances from things that other players in that league just can't. And he was everywhere. He was looking for the ball. He was coming short and taking it. He was just making runs for people. He did all the things we want him to do and scored a really good goal. So I'd probably have just leaned towards Easton.
See what you mentioned in the hospitality. Another winner of the 50-50 from hospitality. Again, a recurring theme, eh?
Yeah.
You wonder how many
big conspiracies at Raith Rovers Football Club.
Well, kind of
keep the common man down.
Jumping back to Graham, I wonder how many tickets he's in there selling, though. Using these the gift of the gab to sell a whole bunch of 50-50 tickets.
I think they basically there is a thing where you put down a certain amount and they give you.
It was a good prize. Well, was it £1,200 or something like that?
£1,200.
Fair play.
Yeah, definitely. So man of the match wise, I think I'm going to go for Ross Matthews actually. In the sense that it was very much a team performance and he was a team captain. And I think there was one of the other things that was sort of bemoaned last week was a kind of lack of leadership. And I find that a little bit nebulous almost, because how do I ken if there's good leadership or bad leadership? And what does that look like from the stands? But by the same token, I'm going to say there was loads of leadership yesterday. And I think very much it was a performance in Ross Matthews' image. Like I said at the start, we maybe took a step away from who have you got that's got the highest ceiling for technical ability on their very best day, and went, who's going to give you all the hard work, all the basics, do their job, no mistakes, no slack, anything like that. And I think that's what we got at Ross Matthews. And I think it's, again, to pick on my favourite subject, the contrast between Ross Matthews and Joe Chalmers. You're basically talking about two guys who had the same job. You're in the base of your own midfield, impose yourself in the game, give your team a foothold to build everything else from best player in the park, worst player in the park, effectively, certainly within those kind of conversations. So that's the way that I would go. I think that will round us off. That was thoroughly enjoyable, much more so than last week. Thank you, everybody, for listening. We will be back midweek at some point. Friday games really throw off our own schedule, so not quite sure when we'll get together. But we will, at some point, get together and look ahead the trip to face Queen's Park on Friday night. So we will see you then. Thank you and goodbye.